This recipe is one of my favorites when you don't feel like cooking or you don't have a lot of money until the next payday. You add some butter to a pan. I add some dried chives, some dried chili flake, some onion powder, and some garlic powder. Boil up some spaghetti, toss that around in that butter. Add a ton of Parmesan cheese and some chili flake on top, and you have a delicious, cheap meal.
My grandfather grew up during the Great Depression. He told us stories when he was little that he would walk the train tracks by the Campbell Soup Factory looking for coal and tomatoes that fell off the trains. He was quick with a joke, loved Sinatra, and always wanted to open a sandwich shop. Now, he never got to open his shop, but he passed that love of sandwich making to me. I would spend the summers with my grandparents in New Jersey and, on most days, sit in the kitchen and watch him build a sandwich. Every ingredient in the right proportion, and everything placed exactly where it needed to be. Even something simple as a sandwich, when built right, is a thing of beauty. His Parkinson's would make his legs sway and his hand jitter, and honestly, watching him with a knife was pretty terrifying. That being said, I never once saw him cut himself. In the end, while lying in his hospital bed, the nurse asked him how he was doing, and with a smile on his face, he looked at her and said, "I haven't been the same since Sinatra died."
Creamy Tuscan chicken is one of my favorite meals to eat and to make, so let me show you how to make it. I like to start off by butterflying my chicken and then seasoning it with some salt, a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder, some paprika, some oregano, and a bit of black pepper as well. I'm just measuring with the heart with this one. From here, I'm just going to heat a pan with some sun-dried tomato oil. This is really what's going to start building those flavors for us. And then just a drizzle of olive oil as well. Once that comes up to heat, we're gonna go ahead and lay down our chicken and sear on both sides. While our chicken's cooking, let's go ahead and prep our veggies. This recipe has really simple ingredients. We're just gonna split some cherry tomatoes in half and then cut one whole shallot or a half of an onion, whatever you have on hand, and crush a few cloves of garlic as well. We're also going to need an entire bag of spinach for this recipe, and don't forget to wash your veggies. Once our chicken has nice color on both sides, we're gonna remove that from the pan and toss in our shallots as well as our garlic. Go ahead and let these cook for about 3 to 5 minutes until they get nice and aromatic. For a fun addition, I like to add some mushrooms to this dish. They lend themselves really well to the tomatoes and the wine. Speaking of wine, we're going to deglaze the bottom of our pan with some dry white wine before tossing in our cherry tomatoes, and I like to add some of those chopped sun-dried tomatoes as well. Totally optional, but I like to add in some red pepper flakes at this point, as well as a little bit more oregano before pouring in about 1.5 cups of heavy cream. Go ahead and let this simmer and let all the flavors get to know each other before tossing in your spinach. I made a mistake and put my chicken back into the pan at this point, and as you can see, I took it out. So just toss in your spinach first, let those get to know each other, let the spinach wilt down a little bit, add in some Parmesan cheese, and then we're gonna tuck our chicken back into the sauce. Once you get your chicken nestled back in, we're gonna let this cook for another 5 to 10 minutes, either on the stovetop or in the oven, and let the sauce get nice and thick and creamy. We're gonna squeeze some lemon over top to brighten up the dish, and then serve with some mashed potatoes or polenta or rice, but you cannot skip the crusty bread to soak up all of that sauce. I hope you enjoy.
bowl. Then you grab all your seasonings, toss them in there. Of course, you gotta add that yumminess, that buttermilk. Mix all the seasonings in, because that's what you're gonna double dip your chicken in. Fry these babies until they're golden, crispy brown. Oh, but it's this honey hot sauce that really makes this magical. Pour all that goodness all over your chicken. I decided to make a Cane's dipping sauce, which is super easy. I went ahead and chopped up some pickles, put it on my fried chicken, and then dipped it in that sauce.
This is what I fed the children last night for dinner. However, my husband refuses to get his hands dirty while he's gaming, so I cut it up in pieces and hand-fed him.
Ambitious to cook something, and it ends up in my freezer for months, like this duck breast. I've never cooked duck breast before, so I thought, you know what? It's finally time. I took it out of its packaging and then pat it dry. I confidently started seasoning it with salt and pepper, and then promptly remembered I needed to score the skin. We were off to a great start, so I did the first score and it was way too deep. On the second one, I went a little bit lighter, still deep, but a bit better. Third score was more of what I was looking for. I scored them both ways, and then it was ready to finish seasoning. Salt and pepper on both sides, and then it was time to cook. I was deciding between a non-stick pan and the stainless steel, but since this is my first time cooking the duck breast, I wanted to minimize the risk of messing up the thing. My record isn't the best with stainless steel, so non-stick it is. I'm going to render out the fat in the cold pan and turn the heat to medium. I kept telling myself to stay patient and not to up the heat, because that's when things go south. And this right here is about 6 minutes. Like me, and stack a ton of stuff in your cabinets that fall out when you open the door. So I think it's slowly starting to get to where I want it to be, but I want to save some of this duck fat for something else. I poured some out and then flipped the breast. Pretty good crust if I do say so myself. I kept the heat on medium since it's a thick piece of meat and I want to make sure to cook it through. Just added a little butter to baste it and a few smashed garlics. I checked the temp and it was at 103 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm looking for 130 for medium rare. More basting because it's fun, and I already know some people in the comments are going to say I flipped this thing too many times, which is true, but I didn't want it to burn. Okay, so I got 127, which I'm happy with since it'll continue cooking a little as it rests. I gotta admit, I'm pretty proud of how it looks at this moment, but really it's all about how it looks when I cut into it, and obviously how it tastes. I let it rest for 8 minutes and then sliced it. Whenever I've had duck at a restaurant, it's been thicker pieces, so that's what I'll do. And I'm very happy with how this turned out, an even medium rare throughout. With the light seasoning and butter, I was able to taste the duck breast. I think next time I'll add a little rosemary and thyme, and maybe some chili oil or flakes. I'm just relieved that I didn't burn or overcook this.
My mother-in-law just told us she would pay for our entire honeymoon to Italy, but only if she can come with us. She said she's been wanting to go for a really long time, and it just makes sense that we're all together. I tried to tell her no for obvious reasons, but then she started crying and she called me selfish and disrespectful. And then my fiance got really mad at me, and he said if I don't let her come with us, then he doesn't even want to go with me, and him and her will just go by themselves. Of course,
I've never had pasta in my life. You've never had pasta? No, I've never had pasta. You've never had macaroni and cheese? No, I have this theory that pasta is the reason why everyone's like